Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome back to the Edge of Everyday, now streaming on all your favorite podcast platforms and at MaximizeU.life. Are you a change maker? Do you walk between worlds, between cultures, between systems? If you answered yes to any of these questions, the Edge of Everyday is the place for you. In a nutshell, this podcast is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradox and contradicting identities live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both individually and collectively. We live in edgy, challenging times. We cannot keep looking away from the ugly, from the difficult, and silence is no longer an option. Life isn't black or white, it's both, and I want to talk about that. I want to face the tension of paradox, and I want to engage in the hard conversations. I want to explore the rough edges between our light-filled brilliance and our dark, shadowy corners, because the more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks again for tuning in. Today, we are live in the hive with Karen Hinton, author of the best-selling book, Penis Politics, a memoir of women, men, and power. Karen was a guest on our show in January of 2023 for our episode entitled The Edge of Silence. What is the price of silence in penis politics? You can check out that phenomenal episode at talkradio.nyc or on my YouTube channel, Sandra Bargman, On the Edge of Everyday. Her book, Penis Politics, is a compelling coming-of-age memoir set both in small-town Mississippi and big city New York, with a long layover in the nation's capital. At the center of Hinton's incredible rise to the pinnacle of success, and hence the focus of this powerful and insightful book, was the undercurrent of men behaving badly. The role that penis politics played in Hinton's life began in childhood with a male school employee who demanded sexual favors from her female classmates, and it extended throughout her life, her high-powered career in journalism and politics, as she bore witness to the struggles that she and her friends and colleagues have undergone to deal with sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and gender discrimination. The Kirkus Review said this about her book: a timely, engaging political account about the consequences of saying nothing and speaking up. Hinton's prose is sharp and incisive. She is adept at setting a scene and bringing people to life on the page. And one of those people was Andrew Cuomo, whom she has known for over 20 years and for whom she has worked for 5. Andrew Cuomo resigned as governor of New York on August 24th, 2021, amidst an overlapping cluster of ethics scandals, including accusations of sexual harassment and misconduct from 11 women. Penis Politics was released in December of 2021. And today, June 23rd, Cuomo is running to become the next mayor of New York City. He has been and is leading in the polls for first choice ballots, although as of today, he has lost the lead in ranking polls. How is someone who resigned in scandal and shame able to lead in the polls? Why do we continue to choose misogynistic, scandal-ridden men to be our political leaders? Men who profess to stand for women's rights, for human rights, and then behind closed doors, they're domineering, vengeful, and manipulative. What has become of the Me Too movement? With all our patriarchal systems in place, with an adjudicated rapist in the highest office in the US, is it possible to uncouple sex and sexual abuse from power and politics? In this episode, on the eve of the mayoral primary in New York City, Karen Hinton is uniquely qualified to explore all of these questions and to weigh in on why Andrew Cuomo is unfit to become the mayor of New York City. Before we welcome her and dive in, though, let me share her incredible bio. Mississippi native Karen Hinton is a nationally recognized media professional in Washington, D.C. and New York. Best known for her role as press secretary to both former Housing Secretary Andrew Cuomo and former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, Hinton played a powerful role in the clash between Cuomo, now the former governor of New York, and Mayor de Blasio. The New York Times called the clash one of America's ugliest political feuds. In 1995, Hinton joined the Clinton administration as press secretary for Cuomo at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. During that time, President Clinton began to face charges of womanizing and worse. Hinton later relocated to New York and became Mayor de Blasio's press secretary. She found herself at the center of the crossfire between longtime frenemies Cuomo and de Blasio, often becoming the subject of news coverage herself. Hinton was at the peak of her career when a catastrophic brain injury from a freak accident confronted her with the battle of her life. Emerging from a coma, learning to walk and talk again, Hinton was determined to speak up, not shut up, on issues involving women, men, and power in politics. Welcome, Karen Hinton. I am so excited to have you back.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be back. I've always enjoyed listening to your show as well as being part of it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, let me tell my listeners. So, after having Karen on the show, reading her incredible book, having her on the show, and having a fantastic conversation, by the way, that's episode 51. Again, people, so run, don't walk to listen to that extraordinary conversation. I, of course, followed her on social media and, we were friendly after that. And then when I started seeing, all of your posting on Cuomo when he was beginning to come back out of the shadows and try to rebrand himself, and I finally reached out. She had, I forget the post specifically, but I was like, I have to have her back on the show. We've got to talk about this. This is not good. He is really gaining traction and people are forgetting. Unbelievable. So thank you again for agreeing to come back on.
Absolutely.
So, as you may recall, I like to talk about how I've met my guests. I like to share that with my listeners, and it's particularly poignant to share how I know you now. It's through our friend, Leslie Michaels, who herself had a fantastic podcast, and we would exchange wonderful guests. You were one of them. And we take a moment to honor Leslie, who passed away a year and a half ago. But that is how I came to you, and through listening to her interview with you, and I'm all of a sudden overwhelmed with sadness out of the blue.
I know. I feel the same way.
Oh, expect that, but grief has its own pathway.
Yes.
So we'll take a breath together in a remembrance of Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank her for knowing one another. And then I always like to ask my guests my very first question. I normally have two of them, but I'm only going to ask you this first one because I'm so eager to dive into all of this. What identity, and I loved your answer when I listened to our former conversation, And I thought about not asking you, but this is a revelatory question and one that evolves. And, so you
Yeah.
never know. It could be something different. What identity, Karen Hinton, do you lead with?
Do I lead with?
What identity do you lead with?
Do I lead with? Well, right now in my life, I think I see myself as a mother
Hmm.
more than a professional. And that has to do, I think, with getting older and seeing a daughter uh, find her way in the world and see less and less of mother, right? And so, I'm hanging on every chance I get to make sure she's doing well, she's got what she needs, and she knows how to handle X, Y, and Z. But thankfully, she always calls me for my advice. So I feel fortunate that she does on occasion listen to me. Which doesn't always happen. So I think of myself really right now as a mother, but second to that is the writing, um,
Hmm.
because it helped me in 1,000 ways recover from the brain injury. Uh,
Oh,
it
yes.
was it was such an exercise that I did purposefully to improve my speaking, my thinking, was to make sure I knew how to write well again. And there certainly are things I've written that are not great. And I find editors to help me slice through it and figure it out. But for the most part, I am 85% of the time fairly happy with it. So I have a lot of fun with it too. And I enjoy the moments of being creative. When you work in politics, and I have for 40 years, uh, you have some creative moments, but sometimes all you really do is take the orders from somebody else and go do it, right? And
Put
that's
out
okay.
a fire.
Right. That's okay. That's politics, and that's the job you took and wanted, and you're glad to be doing it. But it's nice now to have my own, my own room
Yeah.
as um, uh,
In the way that you can comment on
yes.
everything. Yeah,
Well, yes,
totally.
exactly. I can feel like I can say anything I want to say, and maybe somebody might get mad about it, but they're not gonna get me as a
Right.
result. I'm not
Not
gonna
going to
lose
lose
a
a
job.
job over, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Which is always the case in politics. You have to remember that you could lose your job quickly just because you say one wrong thing, but it
Ugh,
has such a bearing on the politician that somebody has to pay the price, and it's going to be you. It will
right.
not be him.
Yeah. Oh, no, oh, never. Yes. Somebody
Yeah,
under has to be thrown under the bus.
right.
So, well, that's a perfect setup for my question, and what spurred you to write Penis Politics. And for our listeners, I'm trying to build a bridge from her incredible book. For those of you who haven't, I don't want to recreate that for our first conversation, but I do want my listeners to know about the book and the beautiful way that through which you stepped into writing. And it was as you were healing, you found these, you were up in your attic, as I recall from the
Yeah,
story. And
right.
so tell us that story and how that prompted you then to say, okay, I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I went up to the attic to look for something for my daughter. And, so I was going through boxes and bags and, just the things you store in an attic. And
Mm.
my mother's hope chest was there, and it needed a paint job for sure, needed a little work on it. And I had put it in the attic with the plan to do that, and it wasn't happening very quickly. So, but I saw it and I said, oh, I'm going to open this and just look at everything that's in it. And of course, it didn't really play the role of a hope chest. It was more of old stuff of mine from past lives that I
Mhm.
just collected over time. And so I went through it and I was pulling things out, and there were yearbooks and there were articles that I'd saved and necklaces and rings and whatnot. And then I came upon this notebook and I opened it and I remembered then I wrote a diary, didn't I? I completely forgotten that I'd written a diary in high school. And I had about 3 years of my high school recorded um, in this book lying at the bottom of my mother's hope chest that she had given me. Um, so I obviously immediately started reading it and laughed, cried, screamed, needed to call 5 people at once and say, do you remember this? Do you remember that? So it was a joyful experience in some ways. But there was a section of it that dealt with what had happened to one of my best friends in high school, Janice. And she had been raped by our basketball coach. And, back then, this was in 1974. And back then, we had never talked about rape at home or at school. It wasn't a concept that needed to be discussed. And we certainly knew vague things about it. We knew it was a bad thing to do, but we really didn't understand all the dynamics and what leads a man to rape a young girl or a woman. But it happened to Janice in our book room where she was working one summer. And he came in, locked the door, and raped her right there in the
Jeez.
middle of the afternoon. And as soon as she left, she went home and she called her 3 best friends and said, you got to come over. We need to talk. And so we, got in our vehicles. We were 16, so we had driver's license. Not that it required us to have a driver's license. We were driving since we were 12, 11. But at
You
least
little rebels.
that's right. We at least were legal doing it. So we went over to her home and sat in her bedroom, and she told us about what happened. And I wish I could remember every feeling I had, but I know from the writing of it that I was so angry at Coach. We called him Coach. In the book, I call him Coach Bailey, but always called him Coach. And I said, I'm just so angry, Janice. I want to we need to tell on him. We need to tell somebody. And she said, no, we can't. We can't tell anybody because I know what's going to happen. All those women in the front office, there were always women working in the front office of a school. And, and some of them were very attractive, and Coach had hired some of them. And
Right.
one of the women was his wife. And so she didn't want anybody to know because she was afraid that some women would be angry with her for talking
Which
about
is remarkable
it.
instead
Right.
of angry at the person who, but this is
Exactly.
every young woman's story.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
I've read this over and over and over again of being fearful, frightened, worried that people will call her a liar. Um, knock, knock. That sounds familiar.
yeah, yeah,
And so she said, you have to keep it. I needed to tell somebody, I needed to get it said because I'm so upset. I don't know what to think about all this. And
right.
she was a virgin.
Yeah.
She, yeah. And so this totally just took her life
Destroyed her.
apart
Just
and
destroyed
in
her.
so many ways. And so when I read that from the diary, I said, I have to figure this out. And that's what I started doing.
So you right then and there, you just had this, okay. Like after I've had this life of watching men be abusive starting when I was young.
Yeah.
And was that the moment where okay, I'm gonna step out of this, help myself regain all my memories, regain all of my speech patterns and cognitive skills, and while telling this powerful story, speaking up, not shutting up.
Right. No,
Ugh.
exactly. Exactly. And that's, this was in 2017 when I had the injury in April. And I believe I found the diary at the end of that year, end of 2017. And the Me Too movement had really got a
Yes.
start in 2017. And those first few months of the year before I had the accident, I had been going to some meetings of women who were trying to organize the Me Too movement and be a part of it and what we could do and how we could help. And so I'd had a taste of it, of what could be done before my accident. And so, having this brought back to me through the diary made me realize, oh, I have to regain my knowledge about this and figure all this out. And then in the meantime, there just became story after story of different men, some well known, some with money, some with power,
Mm.
manipulating their relationships with their female employees, not just Andrew Cuomo, but others, and a lot of them in New York.
Yeah. Ugh.
And so it was, for me, it was almost like the diary opened itself for me, right?
Oh yeah, no, the synchronicity. I just got goosebumps. You
Yeah,
just
no,
saying that.
I
Yeah,
really do believe in that. And
me too.
I think I was put on in that attic and opened that hope chest because there was some spirit guiding me there.
Now is the time.
Right. And so I started it, and it was hard work for a long time of just, I would write, and I write fast because when you're doing public relations or you're a journalist, which I did both, you write fast because you have a
Have
deadline
to.
every day. And so you at least I had that muscle was
Mhm.
working. My fingers were at least working. But what came out of those fingers was not always great, and I had to go back and work on it. And I did. And that was a way for me to regain, um, just little things like what I write in an email, I could make more sense of.
Yeah.
Because I was writing people crazy emails and they would email me back. Now,
What are
what
you
is
talking about?
exactly?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I really do feel like I was brought to that diary and the diary opened
Mm.
itself.
Well, and the courage of the Me Too movement and
Yeah.
how that lit a fire for women around the world, but particularly here in the United States, and particularly, in the women's power circles. That you know what, I'm not. I don't. You and I in our talk before we came on camera, listeners. There's not a woman who hasn't gone through this. It's
Yeah.
young. It starts young, and it's like it's a natural thing in life that there's abuse and power and dominant, and how do we navigate this, and the fury over all of that, and the fear of sharing it, and to have the Me Too collective and courageous upliftment was quite something.
Yes, yes. And it's very sad to see a lot of that enthusiasm fading.
Discipline.
You know, I don't know if you want to talk about this right now, but it
Oh,
just
it's fine. We can
it
we
just
can
really
seg it together. Yeah.
concerns me that the Me Too movement has lost its motion.
Yeah, what's happened to like, and it's a spiral, and it's not a linear thing. We can all say that about movements, but
Mhm.
yet, a- and you would think having an adjudicated rapist in the highest office in the United States would not squelch it, would actually make it, and with E. Jean Carroll would just, make this a bigger thing, and yet, where is everybody?
Yeah, no, I know I'm astounded by it, and I don't understand. Only in the sense though that are we starting to feel that way because the president of the United
Right,
States
exactly.
was found guilty of sexual assault and he won the election
Election.
anyway?
Anyway,
And it sort of makes you think, well, what the hell? There's no hope here. I've been working on this for so long, and yet nothing ever changes. And so, what do we do? And I think that was true for the movement when Andrew Cuomo resigned. Um,
Mhm.
the Me Too movement really came out and took a position on his resignation, saying it was the right thing for him to do.
Mhm.
And then the other one, Time's Up, I think, they had some controversy because they actually um, had sent a consultant his way to help him with some of his sexual harassment claims, which is so hard to understand why that would happen. They did fire the woman who got the consultant to help him, but what happened is it changed all their internal positioning because this had happened to them, and people felt a little betrayed as a result. And that's unfortunate. We need women to make this really at the top of their list. You have the New York Senator Kristen. Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh, Gillibrand.
Gillibrand. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm.
Um, she urged Cuomo to resign when the claims were made originally.
Uh-huh.
And now she's saying, well, everybody deserves a second chance. I'm like, yes, everybody deserves a second chance, but only if
Yeah.
they have said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. I feel so badly about it, and you are not a liar.
Yeah.
Because he's called them all liars,
Yeah.
and he's also, you know, making the taxpayers pay his
Pay
lawyers
to the
60
tune of 19.4,
yes,
$19.4
million
million
dollars.
of
And
taxpayer money for his legal battle.
right. And so then as a result of his subpoenaing, deposing, these women need lawyers, and that's money for them, serious
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And
Of
so
course.
there's consequences to that, but that is part of his behavior, which is retaliation.
Yeah.
He's going to figure out a way to punish you. And there are a lot of politicians who operate that way. Trump is, he and Andrew are the masters at it.
Yeah.
I can't say that Trump is better than Cuomo because I think Cuomo is pretty good at it. What I will say is there's Donald Trump on the Republican side, and then we have our own Donald Trump on the Democratic side, which is Andrew Cuomo. And why
Completely.
New Yorkers would want to vote for this man for their mayor, it only says to me that they say, well, we know he's an asshole. Excuse my
Yeah.
language,
Oh no, we swear all the time.
but but
I'll
he
hear on the edge of every day.
but he's our asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't I'm
No.
not, that's I've got three daughters in New York City. I don't want an asshole running
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, well, I mean, so let's recap. So
Yeah.
my next question is, let's talk about all the reasons, Karen Hinton, that he should not be our mayor. And, but the first one, of course, was that he played apologetic and, thank you for bringing it to my attention. And then his lawyer got up and, it made it very clear it was not it he and so $19.4 million later on taxpayers on their tab, he's not. And how cruel that they've been and dragging all of them through all of these processes. It's all about pretend, and it's all about making them pay, and all about the revenge. And do we want that as our mayor? Of course we do. And that has nothing to do, he is the same as Trump. So it has nothing to do with standing up to Trump, which is what people are saying. Well, he's got all the chutzpah and the anger and to stand up to. No, he, as you say, is Trump. And do we want that? Of course we don't. So talk.
Yes.
No, if you have a comment on that, please do. But otherwise, let's dive
Yeah,
into,
go ahead.
what are some of, the other, let's share some of the other reasons that you
Oh,
think that he
yeah.
should never. be voted for mayor.
I've written two op-eds about this topic, variations on it. One in the New York Daily News, and then one on Substack, which is Andrew Cuomo really does not want to be mayor. It's a very tough job. It's the largest city in the country with a lot of different types of cultures, races, problems that all big cities have.
Yeah, classes, yeah, economic status, everything.
Economics has, the difference between Manhattan and the Bronx and Brooklyn and all of that. It's really a difficult, tough job.
Mm.
And he does not want that burden. But I think he decided that he needed to get elected to something so he can position himself to run for president against Trump in 20 or against some Republican in 28. And this was the way to do it. If you waited to run for governor, it'd be another year. And so he needed to do it quickly, fast, get back in the mix. And he will likely go after Trump. But I know this to be true, that at some point he and Trump will be on the phone together, or they'll meet in a room together, and they'll, slap each other on the back and say, yeah, you've been through some tough times. That's politics, the way it works. But I got to come after you. You got to come after me. So let's play those characters, because that's what it's going to end up doing. It'll just be a lot of what my mother used to say, who shot John, just back and forth. And I don't know that it'll get us to a solution. And as a result, problems that are really important problems in New York City. I mean, affordability being at the top of the list,
Yeah.
not just housing, but also food and, a quality of life. And those problems will not get solved while Andrew Cuomo and Donald Trump are on the stage playing out some drama between the two of them. And Trump will enjoy it because he'll get news coverage, and Andrew will enjoy it because he'll get news coverage. And it's just a waste of time. And so I hope that New York City residents are hearing that and starting to see that. And so they won't rank him at all. Don't
Yes.
vote for him and don't rank him, because there is a way for Mondani to pull it off. The polling is showing that, as you mentioned earlier. And so we have to keep that in mind, that there are a lot of reasons not to not vote or rank for him or
Yeah.
believe him.
Yeah.
Anything he says, he twists and turns, based on the convenience of doing so for himself and for whatever point he wants to make. And then there's also the problem of, how will he manage? He will say, and his supporters will say, that he knows how to manage. I've not seen much evidence of that. He has appointed important people to positions to help him manage.
Yeah.
One of them being the head of the MTA
Right.
from England, and he fought with him so often that the man eventually said, I'm not going to, my life is too short to be dealing with him. And he leaves. And MTA was making big progress at that time because
Yes, I remember.
his name is what, Buford, I think. I think Buford is his name. I should have looked this up before I started talking about it. I apologize. But I think his name is Buford. And he lasted for 2 years. And then he finally said, enough already. Because Andrew was jealous, really, that he got so much great news coverage. It's what Andrew wanted. He wanted the news coverage so he could say, oh, I figured this out.
Right.
Well,
The exact definition of not a leader. A leader should be uplifting all of the people around him and moving the systems together. Couldn't acquiesce to that at all. Well, and I read, and I don't even remember this, that he orchestrated having New York City pay for the ski regions upstate.
Right.
Like, what?
What?
Unbelievable.
When there's so many people that need so much, especially in New York City, where
Mhm.
you have, public housing issues, you have you have some crime, though crime is not as bad as people
Love
describe
to make
it.
it. Yeah. It's
Love
New
to
York
make.
City. It's scary and awful.
But
Yeah.
you do, you need money for the police department and for various things that can prevent crimes from happening. But there are all these things that needed time and attention and funding, and he doesn't put it there. He puts it where he can make somebody he needs to make happy,
Yeah.
because he needs that person that's
Yes.
benefiting from the ski money.
Yeah, the leveraging of the donors and the people that he needs to keep moving forward rather than focusing on the needs of
I
the
mean,
people.
if he's going to run for president, he's going to need all these donors that he's taken from Trump himself. Some
Right,
of his donors are Trump supporters,
right.
and this is big money.
Hmm.
And he has his own PAC where all that money goes flowing into. And there have been a lot of criticism of the way it's been handled
Hmm.
because perhaps he's doing some things that are illegal with the PAC.
Perhaps.
Perhaps, probably, likely,
Yes. Yeah.
allegedly. They always make me say
Right,
allegedly.
right.
Um,
Exactly. All
so,
right, you're covered.
right, I'm covered. Um, we have to remember that even he's good at defining himself verbally
Right.
most of the time, but when it comes to really doing day-to-day management, he is the least bit interested in
Yeah.
that. He's not. He really is all about the news coverage he receives and who he makes happy because he needs them for something. And
Yeah.
that's what takes up his time. And you can do that as mayor, but there's a lot of other things you've got to do too. And it's different from being governor. I
Yeah.
think with the governor, you don't have that immediacy that a mayor has.
Yeah.
And you don't have this, is my trash being picked up on time? Right? I mean,
Hmm.
little things everywhere in a
Yeah.
city, and mayors have to deal with them. And, he's not going to be up for that at
Yeah.
all.
The
And
minutia.
he is counting days until 28, and he can run for the primary.
Yeah.
Now, do I think he'll win a primary? No, I don't. But
Well,
that's I
let's
think it's
hope we
his
have a
motivation.
primary then.
Right. And we don't even are not sure we're going to have an election,
Yeah, but
right?
assuming we will.
Assuming we will,
Oh
right?
my Lord. But so let's shift to Mamdani and it's been so interesting to see reaction to Mamdani and who has thrown their hat in the ring for, like Clinton endorsement and Bloomberg endorsement of Clinton, which kind of blew me away. I have to admit. And I was like, well, I wonder where Hillary is in all of this. Who's she going to endorse? And of course, I couldn't find anything on it. But
No,
but then to
he
switch
hasn't
to
said a
yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah, it's wise, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But with Mamdani and all of the anti-Semitic stuff that's swirling around him, to have Robert Reich endorsed him unbelievably. Bernie endorsed him. Two Jewish men endorsed him. So, the whole anti-Semitic story that is swirling now is so deeply heartbreaking. It's
Mhm.
so difficult to navigate, to talk, you know. But and other endorsements, AOC. What's your feeling on Mamdani, and what do you think about the anti-Semitic spin? And let's weigh in on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't know Mandani that well. I've never actually met him. I
Mm,
have just read a lot about him, and I've talked to other people who know him.
mm,
And I get very high points from them. He is very smart. We know that from watching him in the debates. Um,
yes.
very articulate,
Mm.
and he has some ideas about what he wants to do. And at least the man has ideas. Uh, I haven't heard anything specific from Andrew about anything. So, you may not end up doing what the mayor wants to do, but it will be put on the table immediately for discussion, and that being affordability, rent freezes, that type
Yeah.
of things that affect day-to-day working people, working class people
People.
who are having trouble buying food because of their rent. And so I think he's prepared for that and
Yeah.
wants to handle it. And he may have to backtrack on some of the promises he's making, but at least it will be on the table for discussion in a real way. And it
Yeah.
won't be some closed door meeting with a bunch of real estate developers who,
Right. Right.
and I,
Wealthy people pulling the strings. Yeah.
right. And that's what could happen under Cuomo. Um, but I also think, speaking of AOC, when she first was elected and everyone was so surprised of her election, and that she immediately was branded as this, crazy lefty
Yeah.
socialist communist,
Wacko. Hmm.
the whole thing wacko. And she really didn't turn out to be that way at all. I
No,
mean,
just wicked smart and
she
a new
is.
breed of leader.
Exactly. And I think it is time for us. Look, I'm almost 67 and next month. And it is time for somebody younger than myself
Yeah.
to go run for
Right.
a job and be the mayor of New York City. There's nothing wrong with what is he, like 35, I think?
Yeah, I think 33.
30,
He's
yeah.
he's in his Jesus Christ year.
Um, but he is young, but young is good, I
Young
think.
is good. And well, he comes
I mean, we
across much more or much older.
right, and we saw what happened with Biden and
Hmm.
his decision to run for reelection, which was a huge mistake, and it caused Donald Trump being elected. And so let's give the young people a chance,
Yeah.
and I think we should do that with Mondani, because I think he's just got the hustle and
Yeah.
the muscle
Well,
and
in the
the will.
Democratic Party, totally. The Democratic Party needs to change. I mean, if we've learned nothing from the last presidential election, people are tired of the sameness, the old guard, the behind closed doors, and they want the we've got to move more progressively in a way that we can't make out everything about wokeness here and wokeness there, but we can move forward in a really progressive way that I believe all Democrats are looking toward.
Absolutely. And, on the Clinton Bloomberg endorsements, I, I mean, it really makes me a little just, I can't even begin to understand why you would have a situation where two men who've both been accused of sexual harassment, two men
And really take it
endorse
down.
another one. Okay, so we've got three that are welcomed into City Hall at any time and place. So I did a tweet the other day, and I said, "What, we're going to get Wiener in there too? We're going to get Spitzer. We're going to
Exactly.
get Eric Snyderman.
Oh my
Let's just
God.
how about
Yeah.
Harvey Weinstein? Let's bring him into the City Hall and run the city. They all live in New York. They all know New York.
Yeah. Oh my
You
Lord. It
know,
was hilarious. It was a
I mean,
great
like
tweet.
enough already. It's
Well, they
my
have to they have to cling to that. They have that old boys club. They have to cling to it. They know it's shifting.
old and
They
boys.
and old and it's shifting. And I think, that is the energy that we're feeling with Mamdani, that it is shifting.
Yes, yes,
And with AOC, and we're there, we're right at the cusp, and it's like getting really ugly before it finally shifts. At least
right.
that's my hope. Good.
Mine,
Goddess, that's my hope.
mine as well.
Ugh,
That will, because it's really time for some change. And
yeah.
it's not just the old politician who depends on looks to the donors, and the donors are the key. And then you got to make them happy, and you can't always make them happy. So you're constantly trying to figure out how to make them
And it
happy.
shouldn't be that.
It just takes up too much time and energy. And if you're getting small donations in large numbers, then it's much easier to function. And Mondani's primary donor is small donors.
Yeah.
And so,
Like AOC,
like AOC, and I think that's
who's
healthy,
committed to that. Yeah, it
right?
totally.
And it's very, very healthy. And also, you know, it, no one is always right. Sometimes you're going to be wrong and you mess up. But on this Israel Gaza situation, I mean, you're required now, if you're a politician, to be one or the other.
Mhm.
You got to go full speed ahead,
Which is ridiculous because
which is a high
it's
standard.
absolutely ludicrous that
Right,
you can't, you're not allowed to hold both as a paradox and be honest about both
right.
situations.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the way I feel as well. Um, so you come up there and you talk anti-Semitic, and you use that word over and over and over again. That's what Cuomo has done to Mondani.
Oh, completely.
And that's mean and evil
Well,
and
it's just not
nasty.
true. And
And
well,
it's not
hey,
true.
listen,
That, that too.
I have friends. I've seen it on social media who, because he said intifada globalization, and that was like, boom, he's anti-Semitic, and he has not backed down from that, and it's been but to take that phrase after viewing everything and watching interviews with him, with people, and what he's done throughout his career thus far, to take that phrase when he actually went on to explain his interpretation of it, which is not anti-Semitic.
Right.
It's soul crushing, but that's where we are. I have a hard time even talking with my Jewish friends about ceasefire, and ones that I know who stand with Israel, because I don't want them to be afraid that I'm anti-Semitic, but I don't. I think Netanyahu's crazy. And when I saw a picture today of Cuomo with Netanyahu, I was like, oh, yeah. It's wild. It is. Boy, are we coming to a
That
head.
is so Andrew.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Getting his photo with Netanyahu is incredibly valuable to him, because he's that's one more way he can turn more Jews out to vote for him.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's why he wants the picture with Bill Clinton, because
Exactly.
there are going to be people who remember the good old days with Bill Clinton. And we did have some good old days. We also had some bad old days
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah.
And so it's just frustrating to not give ourselves a chance to really talk sanity into politics.
Oh my
It,
God.
it's just maybe there was a day, and I was too young to remember it. Um, but it's a crazy business, politics.
Yeah. Well,
And
this isn't a brilliant seg into, I'm just looking at the time. It's a brilliant seg into, this understanding of how do we uncouple, and with the way the patriarchal, it's systemic. The patriarchal systems are in place with predatory capitalism, and the donors have taken over. How do we uncouple this, sexual predation and good old days from what wants to emerge politically? I mean, is that possible? Is it possible? I believe it is. What do you think, Karen?
I think if we start electing the candidates who were raised to be to
Non-sexual harassers?
yes, to not become a sexual harasser, to not assume that they could treat a girl or a woman in that way. I think that a lot of men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s today weren't taught the lesson at some point in their lives. And so they just think they can do it. And of course, there's a spectrum, of those that are not so bad at it, even though they still do it. And then those
Mhm.
who are really, they're rapists and violent men who attack women. Um, but at the same time, I think a lot of young men, as well as young women, have been brought up, and maybe the parents taught them, and maybe they just learned it on their own through social media, that this is not the way you treat
Yeah.
young women. It's mostly young women. It's not the way you treat them, and so we're starting to see that in our culture. But as long as we've got these people my age and around my age,
That's
um,
me. I'm 63.
it's
Yeah.
it's time for some change
Yeah.
in governing, and I think we will benefit from it. I will benefit from it when I'm 87, if I'm still here.
Yeah, no, this is the, I say in my spiritual circles, I personally believe that I incarnated for this fight, this very fight that we're in right now. And I like being the age I am in this fight. I will say, I've always known that I was here on a mission, and this is a pretty enormous mission. Did I expect it to look quite this ugly? No, but here we are. And to your point, I want to raise my voice and stay fighting for all of these things because I want to see it shift in my lifetime when
Mhm.
I'm in my 80s.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, as I said earlier, I've got three daughters in
Mm.
New York City, two step daughters and my daughter, and I want that place to work for them.
Yeah.
I mean, um, and they need to earn a salary and they need to make money so they can pay for the rent and pay for clothes and maybe take a vacation every now and then.
Oh,
know.
fancy that. Yeah.
So, I want that place to work. And for it to work, they will waste 4 years if Andrew Cuomo is elected. I just think
Yeah.
it'll be a waste of time. It will not accomplish anything. It will stay the same and maybe even get worse.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
and the another nod at, yeah, one more nod at, I can be a sexual harasser and still move ahead. Yeah,
right, and
one
I'm
more
I'm
example.
not, and I don't think that uh if Andrew had really apologized and
Yes.
held himself accountable and not gone on this tirade and this battle to defame all the women who alleged sexual harassment of various sorts.
Hmm.
It's possible that I, could say, well,
Maybe, yes, maybe he
maybe
has
he
learned.
is the best mayor. If I want to compare him with a certain group of candidates, um, but he hasn't done that, and
No,
that says to me that answers so many other questions about him.
indeed.
It
Indeed.
just it just says so much about who he is as a person. And you need somebody that's more solid, more soulful,
Mm,
more
mm.
in keeping with the way we humans should behave.
Yeah.
And that's part of everything a mayor does.
Yeah.
Um,
And the diversity of that city, the extraordinary diversity of that city. Well, I'm looking at the time. We could go on and on, as I said at the top of this, and I would love to do that, but I'm going to switch gears and ask you to share quickly about what you're writing now, and that I think you told me in our pre-chat recently that you're done with it or you're almost done with it.
yeah,
Tell our listeners what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. Well, I decided I wanted to write fiction, try my hand at fiction. My whole life, I read fiction younger, when I was younger, and then when I was in college. But once I got into politics, I read
Okay.
nonfiction about politics most of my life. And, how do you keep up with reading books, especially these days? There's just a new book about some elected official somewhere. But I've tried to stop doing that and to actually start reading fiction again. So I have been doing that. And then I said, I'm going to try my hand at it. So I took the story about Janice and my girlfriends back home from high school, and I've fictionalized a story. I'm told that some of our greatest writers, even they, will take something that actually has happened in real life, and they take it and then they fictionalize it, and they use different tools in order to make the point they want to make. And they're never lecturing, they're just giving you a scene of something happening and describing it. And then you realize you teach yourself what's going on in that moment when you're reading fiction.
Right.
And I love that freedom to play with it, right? And think about, how can I write about rape and the impact it had on all of our lives, the four girls growing up together.
And all life,
Yeah,
lifelong.
lifelong. And that was true for Janice, because she had to struggle with so many problems she faced, and it was very hard for her to do it. And in Penis Politics, I write about her killing herself at some point. And so, it's you want to try to understand what happened,
Yeah.
what got her to that place.
Yeah.
Mm. So I've enjoyed writing this,
Mm.
and enjoyed. I mean, I've enjoyed the work of trying to develop a message, a theme, without laying it out in plain sight, right?
Yeah.
Because you want your reader to come to his or her own conclusions
Yeah.
about what something means. And
Yeah.
so I'm pretty much done with it. In fact, I'm looking at agents and trying to decide who's the right one that would read my email and give me a call.
Sounds so glorious.
So yeah,
Congratulations. I would love to have you back on to talk about it.
yes. Oh, I'll be here. Let me
I,
know.
I just love it. I love it. And yeah, it really speaks to me as a thespian and a storyteller and someone who helps people tell stories, the power of them and
Right.
and the vulnerability of them and the power of that vulnerability.
Mhm.
And so again, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Well, my listeners, I have way more questions for Karen, but I'm going to have to wait till I have her on about this new book of hers.
Yes.
Just so you all know, listeners, everything that we talked about will be in the show notes, and there will be links there too. And there will be links to where we can find Karen. It's penis_politics.com, correct?
Right. You can also look up KarenHinton.com.
And KarenHinton.com. Yes.
www.karenhinton.com. And
Yep.
that's easier than the penis politics thing.
Got it.
It's
But
still
you're,
there, but
yes, KarenHinton.com,
policy.
penis_politics.com. You are all over social. You're not on Blue Sky yet, though.
I have not gone on Blue Sky, and I've been thinking about that a lot because I feel like I need to do that.
It's
That
happening.
Blue Sky might be better than even Threads, or spending more time on X.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I'm loving Blue Sky.
yeah,
And
it's a
yeah,
great
it's
thing.
just got a great vibe going on. But yes, so she's on X, Threads, Insta, and
And
Facebook, and LinkedIn. She's
LinkedIn.
everywhere. She's around. Well, thank you. If there's any
Yeah.
last words that you can share with our listeners about this process, be it for young people, be it for any age, what last words would you care to share?
Well, talk to the young people in your life, in your world, and talk to them about this problem. so they recognize it and they will understand what they should and shouldn't do. Um, and because it's important that that it be part of the growing up now. Um,
Collectively,
yeah,
the evolution of humanity.
right. No, exactly. I mean, because we do need to talk about it. And parents, aunts, uncles,
Yeah, we
cousins,
do need, yeah,
friends,
suck it up and move through the weirdness of doing it. Get vulnerable, get courageous.
right, right. And all you really have to do is mention it to them, and they'll say, "Don't talk to me about that," but then they'll go figure it out themselves.
Exactly.
Oh,
Totally. Totally. Well, I came across this a few quotes that I just love that I'm going to read on our way
okay.
out. That's
Mhm.
out. This first one from Anita Hill, uh, whom we watched when we were mere babies,
Yes.
and it really got on our radar about
Mhm.
sexual harassment. Oh. She says, women who accuse men, particularly powerful men, of harassment are often confronted with the reality of the men's sense that they are more important than women as a group.
Yeah.
Well, didn't she turn out to be right
Yes.
about our lovely Supreme Court?
Yeah. We're still stuck with him.
Yeah, still stuck with him. Yeah. Um, don't be ashamed of your story. It will inspire others. I somehow didn't get who said that, unfortunately. And my last one is, you're not a victim for sharing your story. You are a survivor, setting the world on fire with your truth. And you never know who needs your light, your warmth, and raging courage. From Alex Ellie. And that's what I feel about you and your penis politics and that you are creating now and will put out into the world. And I thank you so much for the work that you do.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for having me on to talk about it.
Complete and utter honor and pleasure. And for all my listeners, thank you for spending this time with us, with all our inspiring guests. And remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. Until we speak again, take good care.